I've had the opportunity to get to know Brian through Charlotte 714 and some other things. And typically, I remember as I studied at Liberty University the role of the church in America. And at one time, the church is responsible for building hospitals and orphanages and community centers. And unfortunately, at this point, we do a lot of just building big churches. So Brian actually is breaking the mold. He and I were having lunch just last week, and he explained to me about a project that he's doing at Northside that actually got the attention of our elected leaders. The mayor and his staff, his office, came to his church and asked him, is this real? Are you really doing what we're hearing about? So I want you to hear this as the folks are still filtering in. I want to give you about 10 minutes just to tell us what you're doing in our city.
Well, it started about 3 years ago. I became the pastor at Northside almost 3 years ago. And we are right, if you're not familiar with where Northside is, recently, a couple years back, I think, the Discovery Channel did a series called Gangland. Maybe you guys remember it. They chronicled the 20 most violent gangs in the nation. One of the most violent gangs was Hidden Valley Kings, the Hidden Valley Kings. And, well, Northside is right square, it's right there in that dangerous area. And so when I came to Northside, I had been involved in planting churches in different countries in different ways. And so we said, okay, let's make Northside. We had a goal in the very beginning and said Northside needs to be the kind of a church that if it no longer existed, if we were to close up shop tomorrow, we should be the kind of church where if we no longer existed, the community would groan. And at the time, Northside just wasn't. It was a church that was just there and not doing much of anything and had been dying. And so we said, in order for us to matter to the community, we have to get to know the community. And so I met with some of the police officers who were there, and we found out these were the statistics that we were staring at 2 years ago with our community at Northside. The population around it is just over 12,000 people. The number of housing or the number of homes was just over 4,000. The number of youth was just over 3,000. So we knew that the type of people or the number of people we had. The dropout rate was double the rest of the city's average. The birth to adolescence was more than double. Violent crime rate was double. Juvenile arrest rate was double. Poverty was double. Number on food stamps was double. So in all the ways of violence and poverty, the statistics around Northside were double. And so we said that's our target. And so we knew that as a church we wanted to tell people about Christ, but we heard a statement that a missionary had made 100 years ago that said, hungry men have no ears. And so we're never going to be able to reach people and tell them about Christ's love if we can't at least start meeting some of their needs. And so ministry is about meeting needs. That's what ministry is. So I took a sheet of glass up on the stage, and I drew a spectrum across it and said, for too long, people are making church about music and saying, well, what style of church are you? And what they mean is, what style of music do you play? And so instead of people making church about what Christ died for it to be, they're making it about their own personal preferences. And so they're going in the door on day one. Instead of looking for a church that's Christian, they're looking for a church that's musical. And so on either side of the gate, they're going, okay, either your contemporary music, and that defines me, or your traditional music, and that defines me. And so I drew that on the window and then brought a sledgehammer and shattered it and said, that's just not what Christ died for. He didn't come here for us to bicker over the music style and fuss over the music style. And nor did he say that we should define ourselves by the music style. And so what we said that we've got to do is be the kind of church that matters to this community. And so knowing that poverty was the big deal, Northside sits on 144 acres. And so I just got before the deacons and all that and said, I just can't see that God gave us 144 acres so we can look at the trees and cut the grass. And so people pull on the property and they go, man, this place is beautiful. The campus is fantastic. But the shame of it is it's just a big piece of property that's not going for the purpose of God's kingdom. And so we started to say, in what way can we use this property for a kingdom purpose? And we took some of our acres, and at the time, I think 6 baseball or softball fields. We had 3 soccer fields, a football field. I'm like, I know Jesus didn't die just so we can have more athletics, right? So we took some of those we took one soccer field, and we started looking at putting greenhouses on it because we knew that if we could start giving people food who were hungry, and a lot of people who live in that community are having to skip. Instead of having 3 meals a day, they're having 2 because they can't afford a third meal a day. They don't have it. They don't have the money for it. And so we said, well, then let's feed them, right? So we started looking into greenhouses. And long story short, we found that the greenhouse we would need to do, one of them was about $50,000. We felt like we needed 2 of them. we don't have $50,000. Plus, we wanted it to be sustainable. We wanted to start out with organic fruits and vegetables. We wanted to start out with fish ponds. So we started just going, okay, we don't have that kind of money. Let's just pray. We began to pray. And this guy calls up and goes, I hear you guys are trying to buy greenhouses. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I'm trying to get out of the greenhouse business. I got a bunch of them. He said, I'll give you 2 of them. And then we were like, all right. So we go and look at them. It's exactly what we needed. And another guy says, well, I hear you guys are up to something with trying to feed the community. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I own a company that sells rich soil to places like Lowe's and Home Depot. He said, I'll give you all the soil you guys need. Another guy says, I want to help. I've got a gravel company. He said, we'll donate 100 tons of gravel. So we're using that for the floor, right? Then another guy says, I hear what you're up to, and we want to he said, I own a company. We sell organic seeds to grow anything you can think of. He said, I'll donate all the seeds that you need. The guy that owns the property next to us has 2 natural springs in his yard. He came to me and said, I'm going to pay for it. He said, I want you to drill down and tap into our natural spring water, so it'll be natural well water that supports the water of it. Another guy's donating, the solar panels. So we're going to use solar panels for energy. We've got sustainable water coming from the spring. The soil is being donated. So we've got, then another guy came and said, I'm going to build you a road to get from your entrance to the greenhouse. You don't have to kind of go 4-wheel off-roading to get to it. And he's been cutting the check for that. So far, we've not had to write 1 check and 1 penny into doing this. Each one of those greenhouses will feed 1,000 families a week. We now have 2 of them. So by it's been pretty cool. Yeah. So we'll have 2,000 families a week we can feed with it. And now we're working on a 3rd. I'm trying to get a 3rd greenhouse and a 4th.
Here's what's so cool about this. I went and met in his office, and I've been in a lot of pastors' offices, and a lot of them are really big and have these cool libraries. Well, he has taken his library and he's made it like a war room. He's got a map of North Charlotte. And he's literally mapping out where these communities are, where the violence is, where most of the abortion-minded mothers are coming from.
That's right.
I mean, and he's mapping this out, and he's saying, we are going to take our campus and transform it into a value creation, into a productive community for these people.
Yeah.
And I just wanted, when Brian and I were talking last week, I said, bro, you're not on the schedule, but I want you to touch the palate of these folks, because there's probably some pastors in here, there's some other folks in here where you can go to your pastor and say, listen, should we really build another wing? Maybe we ought to try something like this. Well, I asked him, I said, hey, did you hear Casey speak? And did you hear some of these other guys speak? He said, well, actually, Jim Noble and I have been back there in the back room talking and strategizing about how we're going to get together, which is exciting because Jim Noble's got a restaurant. So now we're going to probably be eating some of your vegetable at the King's Kitchen. So I'm really excited. I appreciate pastors that are willing to say, you know what, there's nothing in it for me. I don't get a big book deal out of it. I don't get notoriety out of it. As a matter of fact, I don't get any money out of it. But I want to be a blessing to my community. So I thank you, Brian, and I know it's not you, that it's the Jesus that's inside of you.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what we're trying to do, is make a difference. It just seems like so many churches, it's more easy to kind of shout at people than to go out and serve them. And so we're just not about that. And we've been going into, we mentioned Hidden Valley. We divided it. We just took a big map, the one you're talking about. We divided it into 127 blocks, and we're working on getting 127 teams. And so we're going on the streets. We're targeting first the ones that the gangs are on. And so this past every Saturday from 9 to noon, we're in Hidden Valley talking to people, praying with them, praying for them, and inviting them to stuff that we're doing. I mean, I have my 6- and 7-year-old kids with me, and we're walking up and down the streets just talking to people. We had, out of the 127 blocks, I thought we might first get maybe 4 or 5 of them staffed. The first time I presented this system to Northside, 160 people came forward and said they want in. This is on a Sunday morning, so we had run out of all the little decision cards and all of that. So we've got hundreds of people now every Saturday going into the neighborhood, into the streets, and talking and praying. And then when these greenhouses are built, we'll be taking food with us. So it's all coming together. We've also we've developed a ministry to prostitutes. We've got a safe house we're building, to when we reach ladies who are in trafficking, we can get them off the streets and take care of them. So this whole thing, we call it Life Project. So if you ever hear Life Project, that's what it's about.
Absolutely. Brian Boyles, Northside Church, thank you.